Okay, so officially welcome, Sally.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. So you had a quick question.
Yeah, I wonder if you could talk about cause and effect from the Course in Miracles perspective.
So do you have a specific question about that? Like, what are you not sure about related to cause and effect?
So
Because it's quite a big topic.
it's a big topic, but it's like my head can't quite get around it. That I understand now that the relationship between one thing and another doesn't exist. So I understand now that if I have, I don't know, a massage, that doesn't create relaxation. It's my mind that creates the relaxation. So I'm trying to break down in my mind cause and effect from the sense of I do this and I get that. But I can feel my brain arguing the case. And yeah, I don't really know where other than that to come in from.
Okay, well let's go back to first principles, because that's always useful with a question like this. So if you consider where it all came from, let's have a look at that diagram, our descent into hell diagram, I think. This explains where it originated. Cause and effect is really karma in Eastern teaching. Just to mention that. So when they talk about karma, karma is the law of cause and effect. That's what it means. So I think something, I do something, and then something happens as a result of that. Now I'm in cause, or now there's apparent effect, and that also makes time real, doesn't it? Cause and effect are part of a timeline, because cause and effect need to be separate in time in order to have any kind of meaningful existence, seemingly. There needs to be a cause and then subsequent an effect. So cause and effect in a linear timeline are bound up together. So what we're trying to do with the Course in Miracles, any non-dual teaching, is collapsing cause and effect and going back into the single cause with a capital C, which is God or love or oneness or pure formless awareness, whatever you want to call it. This infinite absolute presence that resides within us. That's cause and effect, and those are simultaneous. In eternity, there's no cause and then time lapses and then effect. That's all part of the construct of the ego. So cause and effect started with time, with the idea of separation. So tiny mad idea just kind of pops into the mind. It's an innocent wondering, oh, what would it be like not to be one, to have my own identity? And one thought leads to another. But that initial tiny mad idea, as Yeshua calls it, is what then kicks off what we call cause and effect, time and space, cause and effect. Anything that's dualistic. So as soon as you say cause and effect, you've got the duality there, haven't you? Because it's not seemingly the same. You have different terms for cause and then effect, time and space. Up and down, hot and cold, male, female. It kicks all of that off. That split in the mind. And Yeshua is simply saying cause and effect is an illusion. It's not. If the idea of separation that started it all off is not true, then cause and effect must also not be true, ultimately. So the undoing is simply to say, well, there is no other cause but God, but love, but oneness. That's all there is. Hi, Iona.
Hi.
Hiya.
Hi, Sally. Beautiful
Nice.
day here. What's it like in the rest of the UK?
Looks all right outside, actually. Yeah, so fairly sunny. Just a little breeze.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and there's John. Oh, excellent. A little breeze. So it's it's nice. It's not South African summer though. South African summer, I'm like top shorts on. It hasn't quite got that heat yet. Anyway,
I'm quite glad about that. Global warming would really have escalated.
Yeah.
How are you, Sally?
Yeah, very good, thank you. I was just sitting out in the garden in the sunshine. It was lovely.
Lovely, yeah.
How are you, John?
Yeah, hi everybody. Yeah, good, thanks.
Excellent. Welcome. So Sally just asked a question about cause and effect. And what's that all about? And so I'm attempting to answer it as succinctly as I possibly can. It's quite a big topic. By referring to this descent into hell diagram. So thought of separation kicks it all off. The tiny mad idea kicks off cause and effect, time and space, and everything else. And what Yeshua is trying to do with us is to help us collapse that and say, look, that's an illusion. There actually was no cause for the ego. That's really what he's trying to get us to accept. Because the tiny mad idea of separation, that seems to be the cause of this entire thought system and its manifestations, the projection of the mind that we call the physical universe, is based on a false idea. So therefore, false cause equals false effect. False cause, if you recognize that it's false cause, must cancel out all false effects. And that's really the methodology of the Holy Spirit and of this radical forgiveness he's teaching us. Simply reinterpret everything that happens here as a false effect. And then you start to recognize that it's false cause. So none of it's true. And then you undo cause and effect systematically in your mind. So the ego wants cause and effect to continue forever because it keeps the timeline going and it keeps duality going and it keeps separation going. And this Holy Spirit says cause and effect are an illusion. You must undo in your mind in order to be free. Because in reality, there's only one cause and one effect. And they are one. You are the effect of God. We are the effect of God. We are the awareness that is the effect of the prime cause, the first cause. And that awareness and its cause are not separate. They are the same. Father and Son are one is another way of saying that. Cause and effect with capital C, capital E are one. And that's really the merging of the Father and the Son. So our awareness becomes that awareness, and we recognize that is only the only cause and the only effect. And we merge cause and effect, collapse in to oneness, and they disappear into that perfect oneness that we're heading to. The Holy Spirit reminds us of over and over and over again. So it's part of the undoing. Part of the undoing is just undoing this idea of cause and effect. Oh, well, if I do this, then I'll get this effect. Now I'm on the timeline. And that's pretty deeply entrenched in our psyche, isn't it? That way of thinking. That's how we brought up. It's how we conditioned. It seems we're on a linear timeline. And yet, above the timeline, actually, cause and effect have no meaning. So you can look at any point on the timeline, you can kind of see that it's all one, and that actually it's not necessarily linear. The cause didn't lead to the effect. It's all part of a dream. Whether you look at so-called future or past, it's all just a dream projection. And all causes and effects within that projection are unreal. So you don't start ascribing meaning to it. So that's cause, and now that's the effect, because that really puts you on the linear timeline and identifies you with time, space, the character, and the dream on the timeline, and the ego loves that. So this is another part of the undoing. Let's just have a look at the timeline. So And you start to see that it's really a thought system. This is what he's trying to get you to see. That this ego, the belief in separation, is a thought system that then has these effects. And so we see cause and effect, we see a timeline, we see birth and death. But it all comes from an idea. And that idea is not true. So therefore, the entire construct can collapse. If you really understand that, the entire thing just collapses because it's based on one untrue idea. Whichever way you look at that idea, he's asking you to reinterpret it. This is the blue arrows, and say, this isn't true. So cause and effect isn't true. Time and space aren't true. Whichever way, whatever you want to look at in the dream world is not true. And that eventually collapses it into the oneness. And that's what we're trying to do with the mind training. Does that help?
Yeah, so if I turn the light switch on, it's just my illusionary world that I let the light in. In
the illusion, within the bubble of time-space, yeah, okay, cause-effect seems to hold. You know, I do something, I take an action. Karma actually means action. So action, reaction. I take an action that has an effect. And then, you know, in the linear timeline, that seems to be real. So we can operate in time and still kind of play that game to an extent, because yes, you know, you want to switch the light on. You need to switch the light on to get light on the physical level. But he's asking us to stop playing the game on the metaphysical level, and so recognize that, you know, all of this, the idea of I'm doing something then to get a result, is part of the construct of time. And in eternity, that doesn't exist. There's no action in it. There's nothing to do. It's just pure beingness. So what can you do that's a cause that will then lead to a separate effect? You can't really do anything. So he's asking us just to lay it all aside and say, you know, drop the whole idea of cause and effect. It was never a good idea. I mean, look at what it leads to. Cause and effect is the timeline, all of the drama of the human existence, and eventually death. That's cause and effect. Cause, you're born, and then you have various effects in time, and eventually birth is the cause of your death. This is how it goes. Drop it all. You know, if you want eternal life, then you must collapse that all and go into single cause. Pure formless awareness of perfect love is the single cause of your being, and you rest in that knowledge. And that's all there is. Okay?
Thank you.
Happy with that? All clear? So no more cause and effect going on in your mind. Oh.
That's enough for today for me.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, it's baby steps. And just to keep reminding yourself. So you're playing in the dream of time and space and cause and effect, but remind yourself that it's not true. That it's just it's a dream, it's a construct of the mind, and that beyond it lies this truth, eternal truth that you can access now, beyond cause and effect. So whenever you're forgiving, you're actually forgiving cause and effect, because you forgive a specific event on a timeline that may have had certain causes. Other people caused it, you caused it. So instead of all of that causation, which tends to engender what? Blame, doesn't it? Guilt, blame. Or, you know, you did this. That's cause and effect, isn't it? You did this to me. Or I did this to myself. Or, you know, aren't I stupid because I did X, Y, Z. Now that's had this effect. Now I have blame going on in my mind. So guilt, blame are part of this whole cause effect and part of the timeline. And the miracle simply says, no, you know, just let it go now and go into this pure formless awareness now, beyond cause and effect. And then there's a healing of that whole mindset of past and future, and guilt and blame and attack thoughts, and you come into the timeless now. where you're now recognizing the one cause. Your only true cause is God. That awareness is what you are. What created you, of course, language. What extended you. And there really isn't anything else, because you invented everything else. Everything else is just a tiny mad idea, gone mad, blown up to gargantuan proportions, into a huge illusion that you've bought into and believed in. But it's still nothing, even though it seems to be something quite significant now in your mind. Okay, so any other questions? Any other comments? Anything to share, John? Iona?
No, I think I'm good, actually.
Mm-hmm.
I'm fine.
Yeah. All right, so let's have a little dive into today's teaching. So, Iona, if you can read this one, read the quote, and then we'll have a little read of the...
Can you hear the guy who's just decided to start trimming the grass?
No.
Not really, no.
Okay, tell me, because I'll sit muted for some of the time.
Yeah.
They might find it difficult, those who have taken authority as truth rather than truth as authority, says Gerald Massey. Should I carry on?
Yeah, read the first paragraph.
Today's quote is very pertinent in today's world, in which more than ever, what the authorities of this world say is being taken as the truth. But as English poet Gerald Massey wrote, the truth is still the authority, because the truth is eternal and unaffected by any false authorities in this world.
All right. Any thoughts on that?
Well, it's been shown to us so clearly now.
This quote, I mean, he wrote this, I don't know, 100 years ago.
Right.
He could have written it, in the last year or two, and it would have been very pertinent.
Yeah.
To what's happened in the last
false
years.
authorities. And I also think that can be taken as the false authorities that I build up myself in my mind. You were talking about blame. And I can instantly say, oh yeah, the blame authority, made up by me. Yeah, I'm going to believe in that right now. Oh, what an idiot! I put something on Facebook and didn't put the right price. So I blame myself for that oversight. Had an uncomfortable 20 minutes, and then thought, I don't care. I don't care. And somebody who had jumped at the price wrote back and said, oh yeah, that's okay. Yeah, that's a much more sensible price.
So yeah, no problem.
I had been given away my timeless authority, I suppose. Yeah, that will do. Timeless authority for an authoritarian thought.
Yeah, so the ego seems to be, it wants to be the authority in your mind.
Yeah.
And dictate your thoughts and emotions from this, untrue thought system. And so the external authorities in this world just mirror what's going on in your own mind. So the reason why, let's say over the last couple of years, so many people bought into the seeming authority of, worldly authorities, saying, yeah, because they have no true inner compass. If you don't have your own guidance, then you must go to the guidance of the ego. So you've only got two guides, and then you will listen. Say, well, tell me what to do. I'm uncertain. I'm scared. And then tell me what to do to make me safe. And then we invite false authority to take charge. But that can only happen if people have given away their own authority and said, oh, I don't really know who I am, and I don't really know what my authority is. So I'll allow some other authority to come in and dictate. So it's symptomatic. If a large part of society are doing it, it's symptomatic of a mindset that
Yeah.
People have lost their way. They've got no inner compass. They don't really know who they are. They don't know what the true authority is. And this is the authority problem that Yeshua talks about. It's another way of framing this split in the mind between the Holy Spirit and the ego. So, John, will you read number 2 for us?
Yeah. Actually, before that, I was just thinking, actually, we've just had a Lancaster bomber fly overhead. And today is all sorts of Jubilee celebrations. And I keep asking myself, well, what is all this about? And obviously there's all sorts of ego stuff in here, and reinforcement of fear. And then I just wonder, well, is there any good in it?
Well, it's you can always interpret it in a way that's inspired by the Holy Spirit. So what I quite like about it is there's a joining. People get together. Really, it's an excuse to get together, have some fun. So that's the good side. We're connecting, sharing, oneness, people having a good time, happiness, laughter, and it's an excuse to do that. So I think that's actually underlying on the truth level. That's what's going on. That's why people make such a big thing of it. On one level. On another, it's massive rampant specialness. This queen entity is just like, who's this person who's so special that we all celebrate her birthday and no one else's? Like, what? What's that about? It's specialness, isn't it? Because there's one person who's more special than everyone else. And of course, people buy into that. Some people love the royal family because they're the special ones. Well, who makes them special? Only your own mind makes them special, gives them a title of royal. He even kind of mocks it at some point in the course. He says, well, you think that you make royal robes, crowns and royal robes of nothing or something, royal robes made of nothingness. So these kind of royal titles and specialness, they have no meaning in oneness at all. The queen is no more special than anyone else. So you kind of, again, it's an interesting game you can play with your interpretation of it. You're listening to "God Save Our Queen." So I was listening to the last Friday. We had a little Jubilee party. I'm like, that's crazy. You're singing for one on the specialness level. Everyone is singing about one person's welfare, an entire nation. Is that not rampant specialness? But then it's madness. Then on the other hand, you've got God Save Our Queen. Well, yes, God. And then I did a translation. I did so pure formless awareness of perfect love, awaken our Queen. Well, okay, if everyone's really praying for that, asking for that, then she's a soul just like everyone else that needs awakening. So, all right, you can look at it that way and not feel any kind of negativity related to it. So with things like this, there's always a split. You can view it in two ways, and obviously the Holy Spirit's asking you to look at it clearly and say, well, actually, just look beyond all the illusions. See, you can see it, you can smile at it and go, yeah, it's rampant specialness and all of this stuff. But I'm not going to stay in that perception because it's not the ultimate truth of the matter.
Yeah.
That's helpful.
Yeah. Somebody calculated that the cost of the whole jamboree is about £3.80 a head.
Really?
And I was watching the kids in the street this morning, all excited and jumping around. And I thought, well, £3.80 a head. Yeah, fine.
£3.80 for each citizen of the UK. Is that?
Yeah.
So on one level you could say, oh, well, that's a waste of money. But then on the other, you could say, well, this gives people some joy and some happiness. That's maybe money well spent. It gives the whole of the UK several days of connection, social gatherings. It's part of the glue of the society. And so then it's just in this society, it's around someone called the Queen and the royal family, and this whole thing, and people like making a thing of it. But I think underlying it, there's a deeper call. Some people really go to town on the specialness, and the royals are amazing, and like I've never bought any of that. I'm like, who are these people anyway? They're just people. If you're spiritual, you recognize that, like, well, by an accident of history and birth, they seem to be in this revered position, but actually they're no more special than anyone else. But I think on a deeper level, the people, the people in the UK, it's part of something that connects them with other people. So there's around these events, there's connection, there's social connection, and they value that because there's a oneness there. And everyone goes out and has street parties, and there's a village fete, and that's the social glue that glues the whole society together. So it's just an excuse for that. So it's an excuse for connection and for oneness, which is you shouldn't need excuses. But I guess on the level of form, you need some event to celebrate. So if you see it that way, then it's actually quite joyful. You're like, oh well, everyone's getting together and connecting, and there's a sense of oneness, and it's kind of it's a point of connection for people, and there's a bit of fun. People are making all kinds of scarecrows, and that on a level that's nice. I think it keeps people a little bit free of all that very heavy seriousness. What I see in South Africa, it's a lot of seriousness. It's so serious, and the lightness of these kind of slightly eccentric things that you do in the UK doesn't really exist, which is a shame, because it kind of lightens up the whole thing, doesn't it? It makes the dream a bit lighter and more fun, and more of a happy dream, which can only be a good thing. So on balance, I mean, I see it for what it is. You identify the specialness and all of that, and you don't believe in that. But you can certainly believe in the oneness, the unity that's actually underlying this, because the Holy Spirit is underlying the whole thing actually as well.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, paragraph 2.
Paragraph 2.
Yeshua calls the apparent conflict between the authority of truth and the false authority of the ego or belief in separation that masquerades as truth in this world the authority problem, and breaks this apparent conflict down even further to the seemingly difficult choice between love and fear. I read this earlier, actually, and I'm just kind of pleased. I've always struggled with this idea of the authority problem, and we did it some time ago, but I still haven't quite got it. But this helps me get it, actually. These was the apparent conflict between the authority of truth and the false authority of the ego. Kind of, it kind of gets it in a nutshell.
Yeah, that's the authority problem.
Yeah.
Which voice are you going to listen to? Which authority is going to govern your thoughts, emotions, words, actions? And there's only two, so you must choose. You can't. It's one or the other. The ego has many faces because it's based on separation. So you believe in an authority like the Queen, and you really believe that. Well, that's a false authority. That's not true authority. You believe in governmental authority. You believe in whatever authority in this world. That's all false. You're giving power to something that is not true. So the only true authority is God, perfect love, perfect oneness, because that is source. Beyond that, you cannot go. That is foundational awareness, beingness, existence. That is the foundation of every mind. That is primordial awareness, primal awareness. There's nothing beyond that. So that must then be true authority, because you cannot go beyond that. There's nothing else but that.
Yeah.
So, this course is a course in resolving this authority problem in our mind. and choosing the one true authority and letting go of all false authority. Or as he says, it's a choice between love and fear. Love being the true authority, fear representing everything that's false. And there's a little teaching on here, authority problem, judgment and the authority problem. So we don't have time to read the whole thing, but if you want to go back and have a read of that, then
yeah, no.
11 paragraphs. No, we don't. but this goes into it in some detail.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
Good. Okay.
Judge rather than to know. So whenever you're judging based on the belief in separation, you have an authority problem, because you're making the belief. Remember, what we're talking about ultimately is just a belief. Which belief do you give authority in your mind? And then that plays out in this world in form. It's, okay, well, I give belief to the royal family, or I give belief to an authority like government, because that confirms my belief in separation. See? And so then the ego plays itself out like that. And we don't see, it's a mask, isn't it? It's wearing a mask. We don't see that actually underlying all of those beliefs in seemingly external authorities lies one belief in our minds, which is the belief in separation, that I am not who I am, that my own authority is not valid, that I've denied that, and I'm now believing in a false belief, which has taken form in these various ways. So it's stripping all that away and seeing very clearly, yeah, it's just my own belief. So, what do I believe in? What do I give authority in my mind? Do I believe in oneness, perfect love, pure formless awareness of perfect love, or do I believe in the idea of separation? And which belief is going to guide me in my life? That's the authority problem. Okay?
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you, can you explain that? What is the authority problem?
Okay, so the authority problem is the error we make when we come from fear and believe in threat and become invested in it, or we are protecting ourselves from it instead of seeing behind that, seeing behind that and focusing on and remaining as far as we can in the pure love that is behind everything.
Yeah. So it's a choice to believe in separation, and the consequence of that is fear and threat and attack and so on, rather than pure formless awareness of perfect love. And give that false belief authority in our minds. And that's the whole problem. That's what we're trying to resolve here. Every conflict, every problem that we experience in time and space is a part of the authority problem. Because in pure formless awareness, there is no problem. There's no question. All questions are answered, and there's no conflict. The conflict's been resolved. Okay, so I'll ask Sally to read the next couple of paragraphs. Split those into.
Is this really a difficult choice to make, or is it just a matter of perceiving the alternatives clearly and making what then becomes an obvious choice? The perceived threats in the seamless external world give rise to fear, which any truly honest person will admit feels heavy, contracted, limited, and restrictive.
Yeah. So if you perceive part of this, a big part of this process is perceiving clearly, having some true awareness to see, okay, well, that's fear. That's what it feels like. I recognize it. I recognize what it is. I recognize that it's it's not what I want. It's undesirable. It's unpleasant. I want to be free of this. Because then the choice becomes obvious. Okay, well, I just need to let this go. But the ego, it doesn't want you to have that clarity and really see fear for what it is. So awareness is its greatest enemy, because awareness will get you to realize and be truly honest with yourself. That's what he means by honesty. You see it clearly, and you don't defend it. You simply go, yeah, that's what it feels like. It's heavy, it's contracted, it's limited, it's restricted. There's really no value to this at all. I don't want this feeling. So yeah, I'm willing to let it go. I'm willing to let go of the entire thought system that sponsors this kind of feeling. Whereas the ego doesn't want you to have that awareness. So, oh well, actually what you're fearing is real, and so it looks to the external. It says, no, that's real, so your fear is justified, and not just focus and say, this really doesn't feel good, and ultimately this is my choice. I can choose to feel this way or not. So awareness is the first step in undoing it. Okay, happy with that? Iona, you want to read the next one?
Love, on the other hand, feels light, expanded, unlimited, and liberating. If there's such a dramatic difference between these emotions, and one feels so good and the other so bad, why do so many people still choose to live in fear? Yeah,
it makes no sense. Well, if you've got such contrasting opposites, and you can have light, expanded, unlimited, liberating, free awareness, or this very dark, limited, heavy, contracted, restrictive awareness.
Shall I read the next paragraph then?
Yeah.
Because they haven't yet perceived the clear distinction between love and fear for themselves, and understood that they can and ultimately must choose between them. No seeming authority in this world can force you to feel fear, because it's always your choice how you respond to anything the so-called authority says or does. Well, that's a very timely reminder. Yeah.
So this is the one thing no authority can take away from you. You have the ability to respond, to choose your response to that apparent authority. So even in extreme situations like Viktor Frankl in the concentration camp, Jesus, Yeshua on the cross, right? They've crucified him. This worldly authority gone, right, you deserve to die in this horrible way. I still have a choice as to how I'm going to respond, and they cannot take that away from you. And so that's your power if you go there. And so a lot of people do awaken in these extreme situations because they access that power and they go, even in this extreme situation, I can still choose the truth over the illusion. And there's a major, obviously learning and undoing of the ego there. Because if the ego throws you everything and, showing you this dark, fearful, attacking world, and you refuse to believe in it, then what power does it have over you anymore? So, no matter what the authorities of the world do, so what?
Yeah.
They cannot affect your true awareness at all.
Yeah.
And so Yeshua knew this. He was not really out to fight the authorities of his world and overthrow the Romans on the level of form. Because there was a whole, if you watched Risen, there was a whole insurrection, and the Messiah was going to come and free them, and he was going to be a king and a military leader. There was a whole misconception. But that really gives power to the illusion, doesn't it? You're making the dream world real. And so you're actually giving authority to the ego by fighting the authorities of this world and saying they have real power to do anything. You're actually giving them power, and you're believing in the ego, and you're still caught up in the authority problem. By fighting the worldly authorities, you have an authority problem, huge authority problem. Whereas Jesus said, my kingdom is not of this world. Give unto Caesar what is Caesar's, referring to the taxes. Give unto Caesar what is Caesar's, give unto God what is God's. Okay, so these are different realities. So don't get caught up in matters of time and space. Just let them go and recognize these authorities are illusory. They will not last. And they didn't. Eventually Roman Empire comes to an end. All worldly authority, these authorities come and go. They're not permanent and eternal. Whereas truth is always there. Okay, so next one, John.
Even if a pseudo-authority of this world threatens your life, either directly or indirectly, e.g. the medical experts tell you that you will get very sick or die if you don't have a COVID vaccine, you'll come to realize, if you haven't already, that you still have a choice about how to respond to this apparent threat. You'll either respond out of fear, in which case you'll almost certainly choose to have a vaccine, in my example situation, or you'll respond with love that simply denies fear exists and overlooks all the apparent justifications for fear in this world, such as viruses, other diseases, pandemics, lockdowns, economic recession, global warming, and the list goes on, doesn't it?
Yeah. So any thoughts on that?
Well, I think it's quite interesting, this pseudo authority of this world. I mean, we are surrounded by pseudo authorities, and most of us are vulnerable to some of them, be they different ones in different cases.
Yeah, well, we listen to them, and what I've seen so clearly in this pandemic is people who are on a genuine spiritual path tend not to listen. They tend to go, no, that doesn't feel right for me. And so I reject, the advice of the authorities, because I have an internal guide. I have an authority within me that's telling me this is wrong. But if you don't have that authority, you haven't connected with that, then most other people just buy the authority. They'll go, yeah, okay, well, yes, I'll just do what you tell me to do, without really questioning it, without saying, okay, well, is this actually true? Is what they're telling me true? Really, can I know that for sure, that this is true? Byron Katie's work is useful. She says, can you know it's true? Can you know this is true? And then the second question, can you absolutely know that it's true? And you can't really. They tell you to have a vaccine and it's going to protect you. You can't know that's true. There's no proof. It's a belief. They're telling you, they're asking you to buy into a belief system, and there's no proof for that. So, if you have some spiritual training, you just recognize what we're dealing here is this isn't fact. This is all belief and opinion, and it's their opinion, their belief system that they're trying to impose on you, and tell you that this is true and this is actually going to work. And there's actually no evidence for that. They're just asking you to buy it because we're the authority. It's a version of what happens with poor parents. Say, well, why should you do this? Well, because I say so. Because I'm the parent and I'm in charge. So just listen to me, and I'm right because I have the authority of being a parent. It's that mindset, isn't it? I'm in charge, so don't question my authority. But of course, if you're on a spiritual path, you have to say, well, who put you there? Who gave you that authority in the first place? And if it's not coming from God, pure formless awareness, then it's false. So this is why the message of any true spiritual teacher is so threatening to worldly authorities. They don't like it at all because it undoes their authority, worldly authority. That's why they crucified Yeshua. He's so threatening to that whole thought system, because he's saying that ultimately your authority isn't true. So the ego says, no, it is, and well, if you don't agree, we're going to put you to death. And then he goes, okay, fine, I'll just resurrect. So I'll show that actually your authority is meaningless, because there's an eternal life that is beyond all of this, and I'll just demonstrate that. Which is why his message was of freedom and liberation, ultimate freedom and liberation from all of these false authorities of the world. Okay. So next paragraph. I think we're on to Sally.
You'll either respond out of fear, in which case you'll almost certainly choose to have a vaccine, in my example, or you'll respond with love that simply denies fear exists and overlooks all the apparent justifications for fear in this world.
We've actually read that one.
Yeah.
Okay. Carry on down then.
Yeah.
Those who live in fear of the world will always disagree with those who choose to see it through the eyes of love instead. And they will always be manipulated by the authorities of this world using fear and its equally ugly twin sister, guilt.
Yeah, so just pause there. Because if you really look at, let's say, what's happened in this pandemic as an example, actually what's going on is fear and guilt on a mass level. Fear is the obvious one. I fear for my life, I fear for my safety, so yes, I'll do what you tell me to do because this is going to keep me safe. So that's the obvious level of motivation. Then less obvious is guilt, because if you don't do what the authorities tell you to do, then somehow you're not playing the game and you're compromising everyone else's safety. So if you don't take a vaccine, then you're not playing the game, and now you're guilty of endangering everyone else's safety. See, so there's the guilt at a more subtle level of what's manipulating people into doing it. So I think a lot of people might have taken the vaccine, not because necessarily they feared for themselves, but because they feel, I'm kind of letting the side down. And if I don't do this, what will people think? So, okay, well, I'll just go and do what everyone else is doing. So, if you look at spiritually, fear and guilt, I mean, these are the ego. It's coming from false belief in separation. So it's not true. Nothing that involves fear and guilt is true. It must be corrected, forgiven, or let go of by the Holy Spirit, and the truth revealed beyond it. Okay. So next paragraph, I think it's Iona.
Those who choose love cannot be manipulated because they see beyond the illusions of the material world to the eternal presence of life itself in themselves and all living things. They know it always has and always will abide in them and cannot be harmed or destroyed in any way. So they lose all fear of apparent consequences in this world, knowing that no matter what happens on this level of form, their true eternal being remains unaffected forever.
So in your case, the error on Facebook, you just said, well, I don't care.
I did.
Well, because you're saying in truth, in true eternal beingness, this doesn't matter. That doesn't matter at all. So I don't care.
Yeah, I didn't, it was great. I just didn't care enough to I just dropped the blame and the feeling. So
yeah. Oh, I've made such a terrible mistake. And, actually, in truth, you haven't, because it doesn't matter. Your true eternal being is unaffected by any error.
Really? Yeah, when you put it like that, it's really silly.
Yeah. And so, that's a silly error, but then, we make seemingly bigger errors. We have, errors of take my life. I was away for 3 years. Well, you say, wow, that was a real mess. How could you? And it's like, you can beat yourself up for that, or you can just go, okay, well, that's how it played out. It's like, it's not an error. It's actually part of the awakening process. There's no error here. This is all for my awakening. So if I accept that, then you cannot make an error. It's impossible.
Yeah.
Even when it seems to be an error. And on the level of form, you have these consequences that are seemingly undesirable. You go, well, it's all perfect because it's part of the awakening. Whatever the undesirable consequence was, it's showing me something that's, and that applies to everyone. Yeah. It's showing us something. So then there's no guilt. Okay, it's all part of awakening. It's all perfect in its apparent imperfection. And then you can just kind of relax and go, well, the Holy Spirit's always got it. There can be no mistakes. Which is why he says at some point, that there's, you cannot really make mistakes. There's a presence that's there always, and you're in the perfect place, the perfect time always, even when things are going completely pear-shaped seemingly on the level of form. It's still perfect, you see, because there's the lesson right there. The Spirit is always with you, saying, okay, well, here's just a lesson. I'm gonna help you to reinterpret this so that you can free yourself. So your worst situations are your best ones often, because that's when you really learn, and you've really got to confront the false authority of the ego and collapse it in order to be free. And that's the miracle. Whenever you do that, it's a little miracle. So you had a miracle with the Facebook experience. It's nothing like earth-shatteringly profound, but it's a little, it's like a little shift in your perception, isn't it? And then you feel the lightness and the freedom. And you go, oh, okay, well, hey, now I've got a reference. Let me do this more. And now you get into a pattern of just letting go instead of beating yourself up.
Yep, I see it. Okay.
And that's all. That's why I said it's a very simple course. That's all he's asking us to do. Just don't beat yourself up. Just let it go.
Let it go. Let it go.
Let it go. And what could be simpler, you think? Yet, we spend hours and days and studying this and practicing this because we have such a tendency to beat ourselves up and hold guilt and believe in this false authority of the ego that's telling, oh, no, you messed up and you made a mistake and don't you forget it and remember the guilt and remember that you're imperfect. We've got such an investment of that it takes a lot of mind training to undo it. Okay, so last one really, then it goes into David Icke's video. We can talk about that briefly if you like. So John, if you can read this.
Yeah, this truth is the true authority Gerald Massey speaks of in today's quote. And the authorities of this world that tell you to fear and feel guilt for what you've done or not done are the false authority against which he contrasts the truth.
And then that I don't know if you watched that, David Icke, but definitely worth a listen. So what he's doing, what David Icke is doing, is he's using what's happening with COVID and the whole conspiracy of the global cabal. You probably know his teaching, but really he's actually using it as a spiritual teaching. That's what he's trying to do. He's trying to awaken people through this to the truth of who they are. So he's actually he's a conspiracy theorist on the level of form, but he's actually a spiritual teacher trying to awaken people from the ego's belief in a false authority, and that plays out in this world as, oh, you're going to believe the authorities of this world, governments and so on, rather than the truth of who you really are. And so he's at the forefront of saying, and this is just his way of teaching, saying, well, we'll recognize that it is a false authority and go to the truth of who you really are. That's the true authority. So hats off to him. I think he's an amazing guy. What he's done, and over years and years. I mean, he was ridiculed and disparaged, and people called him crazy. And actually now you go, well, actually he wasn't crazy. He's he's been telling the truth all along. Just this is his modality. He's teaching through the modality of this conspiracy theory and really asking people to drop their belief in the false authority.
Mm-hmm.
So have a listen to that. It's only about 12 minutes if you haven't. And that brings us to our lesson. So who would like to kick it off? We read the first one. These are very short. And there isn't actually any translation to do in the first one. So, Sally, do you want to read the first one?
Lord, being love is also happiness. Let me remember love is happiness and nothing else brings joy. And so I choose to entertain no substitute for love. Carry on.
No? Any thoughts on that? Pause.
No, it's just keep remembering that love is happiness over and over again.
And this is backed up by research. So there was a study, I think I mentioned it before, but I'll mention it again, the Grant study, which was done through Harvard University over a period of 80 years. And they surveyed 260 odd graduates, Harvard graduates from the 1944 class of Harvard, which included people like John F. Kennedy. And then they combined it with another study, which was of another socioeconomic group, a lower socioeconomic group. And they did this every 2 or 3 years. They would go and they'd interview these people and ask them what was happening in their lives. And at the end of 80 years of research, the head kind of psychiatrist who was directing the study said, "Love is happiness. Full stop." That's the succinct summary of the whole study. Love is happiness. So if people have that genuine love, I'm not talking special love, but a deeper connection with people, warm, loving relationships, that was the greatest predictor of happiness, success, income, all these things, of anything. Career success, money, none of that really featured. Just simply love is happiness. So the research confirms it. That was a study over 80 years, done with hundreds of people, and it's saying exactly what Yeshua is saying here. God or love is happiness, and only love brings happiness. Only love brings joy. So I choose to entertain no substitutes for love. So the false authority, you believe in a false authority. That's an authority other than love, really. Now you give that power and meaning in your life, and then you wonder why you're unhappy. Well, because only love brings happiness, and there's no other source of it. There's no other way to find authentic happiness, as I call it, than love. So Yeshua just asking us to accept that. Again, it's the same message repeated over and over, but it's worth remembering always. Love is happiness. These are not separate. So the way to experience happiness is to love. And, that this is a teaching, pretty much every spiritual teaching teaches this as well. But, if you go seeking for your own happiness, that becomes selfish and self-centered. Then you go into desire and expectation, and desire is a source of all suffering. So desiring happiness, or the pursuit of happiness, is another form of ego. Seek and do not find. But if you drop into this timeless love, and you allow that to guide your thoughts, words, and actions, then happiness is just a natural consequence. So true cause and effect is I love and then I feel happy. That's now you're in a true cause-effect relationship. Because actually they're just the same. The experience of love brings us what we call happiness. So it's a happy feeling. And anything else doesn't. Okay, any thoughts on that?
That makes sense.
Okay, John, if you can read the next one, please.
I seek only what belongs to me in truth. Love is my heritage, and with it joy. These are the gifts my source gave to me. I would accept all that is mine in truth. So these are the gifts my Father gave to me. I would accept all that is mine in truth.
So joy comes with love. Saying, these are. It's really one state of mind. We have different words for these states in this world. We call it joy, we call it love, but really what we've been pointed to is one awareness, aren't we? In that awareness, there's love, there's peace, there's joy, and that awareness transcends any of those labels. Those are just descriptors that are useful in this world to point to this ultimate state of mind that is pure formless awareness. That is the very source of our being. So I seek only that. Seek only what belongs to me in truth. No false authority can come in. If I seek only that, then I open myself only to that. And then I must deny the other authorities. So this is how it goes. It's with authentic spiritual path. On the one hand, you're opening to truth. On the other, you're closing the door to everything else. So some people can misinterpret that and say, oh, well, that's awfully restrictive. You might have had, comments, oh, well, that's a bit limiting, isn't it? Well, surely we should be open to everything. Everything is God. This is false, spurious spirituality. Everything in this world is God. God's behind everything. Oh, okay, so God's behind then the false authorities of this world. God's behind all the pain and misery and suffering and sickness and death. You see, that's that you can evidently see with just a little bit of common sense that that's a false argument, isn't it? Because if God is behind all of that, then God is not a God of love. Then God is a God of fear and hatred and attack and sickness and death. And you cannot accept that God, false God, and the true God of perfect love in your mind, because they contradict each other. So you must deny the illusory God. You must deny the illusion. You must deny the false authorities in order to accept the truth. There is no choice. Those are the choices. Trying to fudge it and say, well, God is everywhere and everything. You accept everything in this world. Means you're in duality. Okay, well then God is insane, split his mind, and now you've got this insane world. It doesn't make any sense. There's all this contradiction. You have love and fear, life and death, and both of those are true. Well, there's no resolution then, isn't it? We're just stuck in a dualistic paradox forever. So resolving the authority problem is to escape the dream. The dream is the projection of a confused mind that hasn't resolved the paradox in its own mind and wants to continue believing in both. And this, one idea, I seek only what belongs to me in truth, just resolves that, doesn't it? Well, that's all I want, just the truth. Okay, so any thoughts on that? Comments, questions, insights? Nothing. Okay. So shall we do a meditation on it then?
Yeah.
So just closing your eyes. Sitting comfortably, feet shoulder width apart. Wrap your hands in your lap. And start off by taking a nice deep breath in through the nose. So breathing in, noticing how the stomach rises and the chest rises. A subtle flow of air in through the nostrils. Clenching the sphincter muscle, locking the energy in. Drawing the energy up the spine to your heart center. Put one hand on your heart, connect with your heart space. Draw the energy all the way up into the crown of your head, pausing at the top of the inhale. Let's smile there. Scan your mind, notice any thoughts, any emotions going on, any sensations, particularly anything that feels negative, limiting, contracted, constricting in any way. Let's kind of breathe into that. Create some space, some light, some awareness. So nowhere else to go, nothing else to do. Nothing else to think about. Just the truth. Remind yourself that God, being love, is also happiness. And anything that denies that, anything that obscures that, is illusion. So exhale. You exhale, just breathe it all out, letting it all go. Imagine you blowing away that darkness, limited awareness, contraction, constriction, restriction in any way, shape, or form, blowing it away like a dark cloud. It's leaving you. Just opening your mind to the truth of who you really are. Just pausing at the bottom of the exhale. The gap between breaths, you can access this true awareness. It's the awareness that is the true authority in your life, pure formless awareness. And so breathe that awareness in. Nice deep breath in. Breathing it into every pore, every cell, every muscle of your body, every part of your mind, every fiber of your being. Yes. In this awareness. This is the truth. So say, I seek only what belongs to me in truth. The pure, formless awareness of perfect love is the truth of my being. And then I breathe that in. Immerse myself in the truth. Let it flow in to every pore, every cell, every muscle of my body, every part of my mind, every fiber of my being. It's all encompassing. It's the underlying awareness without which I would have no life, without which there would be no mind, no body, no world. So it infuses everything. Now I am connecting with this deeper awareness, this source, and all the gifts that it gave you. Love and peace and joy come from this awareness. They are an intrinsic part of it. So if there's anything else that seems to contradict this experience of total love, peace, and joy, just breathe into it again. It helps you imagine you breathing in a golden or white light into that thought, that emotion, into any area in your body where you're holding tension. You're holding the darkness, so breathe it in to enlighten your mind. This deep, full breath in. You're infused with the light of truth, the light of pure formless awareness of perfect love. You rest in this presence, wholly, completely, in love and as love. Nowhere else to go, nothing else to do, nothing else to think about. Just exhale, let everything else go. Any dark clouds, blow them away with the breeze of your breath, to reveal the blue sky, your pure, formless awareness, the light of your source that shines through it, shining through your mind, this infinite, open, expansive state, beyond thought and emotion, beyond physical sensation, beyond the cloud patterns of this world, lies this infinite, eternal truth. And it's available to you right now. So just sink into that, surrender to it, allow it to envelop you and encompass you, to awaken you. There's nowhere else to go, and there's nothing else to do, there's nothing else to think about. Just breathe in and out through your nose, observe the breath flowing into and out of the nostrils. That focus your mind into the present moment, no other thoughts. And this is how you seek and find only the truth. And remind yourself that God, being love, is also happiness. And I seek only this. I seek only what belongs to me in truth. Love and happiness and peace and joy. Right now, I invite these experiences, this total experience of perfect love, into my mind, into my experience. For the next couple of minutes of deep silence, just surrender to that experience fully for the next 2 minutes or so of deep silence. Any thoughts arise, seemingly interfere with this pure formless awareness of perfect love, just observe them casually. Recognize their illusory nature. They are not real or true. And so you exhale, just release them to the nothingness that they really are. And you surrender to the light that lies beyond all of these thoughts. The pure formless awareness of perfect love. Say, God, being love, this presence is also happiness. When I'm in this presence, I feel happy. Seems to be an obvious statement, obvious relationship, but ego has denied this. Denial is the authority problem. So just let that all go. Surrender completely to this presence, this awareness. Nowhere else to go, nothing else to do, nothing else to think about for the next 2 minutes of deep silence. Surrender into it completely. The next 2 minutes. And so just gently coming back. This deep state of awareness. Mind back into the body through the awareness of the breath and the senses and the world. So on the count of 3, you can open your eyes. 1, just breathing in, noticing how the stomach rises and the chest rises, the subtle flow of air in through the nostrils. Just pausing at the top of the inhale, smile. Scan your mind, notice any thoughts, any emotions, any sensations going on, particularly anything that feels at all negative, limiting, contracted or constricting, and remind yourself that God, being love, is also happiness. And I seek only this truth today. So you exhale, blow it all away with the breeze of your breath into the nothingness that it really is, letting it all go. Surrendering it all. From the lower stomach into the spine. Spell the last remaining air out. Notice the weight of your body on the count of 2. Pressing down into the chair, your feet touching the ground. Noticing what you're feeling with your hands. Notice the subtle flow of air in your skin. Notice that. Breathing in. Noticing any smell in your nose. Maybe there's a subtle taste in your mouth. And notice what you're hearing in the surrounding environment. Noticing all these things from this very still, calm, and surrendered state of mind. State of beingness, of pure formless awareness. So let this guide you. Anchor this state in by noticing it. Set the intention to stay there, to help you practice today's lessons frequently. So Yeshua recommends every half an hour, even if it's just for a few seconds, just remind yourself of the idea. On the hour, God being love is also happiness, and on the half hour, I seek only what belongs to me in truth. Sent you a couple of breath breaks, 2 minutes at a time to help you do that if you have the time. Otherwise, you can do it in under a minute using the instructions I've given you in your email and telegram message. And that should keep you in a very connected, flowing state for the afternoon and evening ahead. So on the count of 3, open your eyes. Just take a minute to look around, observing various thoughts, emotions, sensations. Underlying it all is this love, perfect love. Which is happiness. So it doesn't matter what you're perceiving in this world, that awareness is always there. And these ideas are simply reminders to connect back into that awareness. So stay connected to that, practice well until our next session, which will be this evening. I'm going to make it an hour earlier because I don't have family commitments tonight, so we could do 7:30 UK time if that works for you.